Hey folks, and welcome to another topical deep dive here on the Core Cutters News channel. And this week I thought we'd explore an interesting service that's actually been around for a bit, but it's finally officially coming to a number of Google TV and Android TV devices. I'm talking about Google Stadia game streaming service. The platform lets you stream popular video games on a number of devices, and the idea is to get you access to high-quality, high-end gaming without needing to invest in a pricey gaming PC or a dedicated games console like an Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5. That's the idea anyway, and recently Google opened up access to Stadia by adding support for a variety of streaming devices operating on Google TV and Android TV. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how the service runs on 3 different devices at 3 very different price points. So if you've got a Google TV or Android TV device at home and you're wondering whether Stadia can really transform your streamer into a full-on gaming machine, we hope this one helps. This is trying out Stadia on Android TV and Google TV. What is Stadia? Okay, let's establish some basics here. If you're not familiar with game streaming services like Stadia, here's a very baseline explanation of how they work. Game streaming services like Stadia or Microsoft's xCloud or PlayStation Now all operate on a similar principle. They all let you play games that are actually being run on powerful machines miles away from your home. And the appeal there is that you don't need to have a high-end gaming device inside your home or with you on the road to enjoy these high-end games. So let's first establish how traditional video gaming has worked for decades. You have a machine in your home, whether it's a gaming PC or a dedicated console from, say, Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft, and you load up a game on that machine and it outputs audio and visual data to your TV. And then you react to that audio and visual data generally by inputting commands via a gamepad or some other input device. Those commands are sent to the machine running the game and it spits out new data based on your inputs. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, game streaming services aim to shake things up a bit, so instead of having the gaming machine on your living room floor or on your desk or in your entertainment center, game streaming services usually feature racks and racks of powerful machines located in some warehouse, usually nowhere near your home. Those machines run the game you want and send the audio and visual data over the internet to your home, where a compatible device like, say, a Chromecast with Google TV receives that AV data and sends it to your display. And then you react to that info as you normally would while playing a game, and those inputs are sent from your controller to the streaming device, which then uses the internet to relay your commands back to that remote machine, and on and on. Now, naturally, given the increased distance and extra steps involved, speed and overall latency are often a concern with these types of services, and we'll get into it more when we actually test some devices, but generally speaking, that's how game streaming services work. Many of these platforms have been described at one point or another as the Netflix of gaming, and while we're still in the early stages of this trend, it's not hard to see the appeal. Instead of shelling out hundreds of dollars or more on dedicated gaming hardware, these services are pitching more for your gaming dollar via streaming because you can theoretically play these games on a wider range of devices that couldn't normally run such demanding software. But even without a PS5 or Xbox in your living room, you still need some sort of device on your end to act as a go-between, and that brings us to Stadia, which includes a free plan and a paid Pro plan. The free plan tops out at 1080p resolution, and you do have to buy the individual titles you plan to play via the service. On top of that is Stadia Pro, which goes for $9.99 per month here in the US and includes perks like up to 4K game streaming and a selection of free games each month. And toward the end of June 2021, Google announced its Stadia service would finally arrive on a number of streaming devices running Google TV or Android TV. And now that Stadia has arrived, we thought it'd be interesting to see how devices at several price points fare. So let's take a look at our lineup for this test. Our Stadia test lineup. So as we mentioned, Google recently updated its supported devices list, and it turns out we have a few of the listed streamers here in our office. So let's see how Stadia performs on gear at very different price points. On the budget end of the spectrum, we have the new ON FHD Streaming Stick. Now this is a Walmart exclusive device that runs on Android TV, and one of its main draws is the price point, an impressive $24.88. And yes, we recently reviewed this exact device, so if you want to learn more about how it performs as an everyday streamer, I'd highly recommend checking out the link down below in the video description. Moving slightly higher up the price ladder is Google's own Chromecast with Google TV. And it's interesting because this device has been on the market since the latter half of last year, and many were wondering if Google would ever add Stadia support to its own streamer. Well, they finally did, and now we get to see how this $49.99 streaming dongle performs as a games machine. And finally, at the high end, we have NVIDIA's popular Shield TV Pro. At $199.99, this Android TV-powered machine packs a punch and can pull off a number of tricks beyond serving up streaming apps like Netflix. In fact, there are already a number of solid gaming options on the Shield, including NVIDIA's own GeForce Now cloud gaming service. But for this face-off, we'll be focusing on how NVIDIA's versatile streamer performs within the confines of Stadia. And to recap, here's a quick rundown of the three devices we're comparing today. As you can see, they differ significantly and not just in price. The FHD Streaming Stick, for example, tops out at 1080p resolution, while the Chromecast with Google TV and the Shield TV Pro can both hit 4K. However, we need to point out that 4K gaming on Stadia requires a Stadia Pro account and a pretty solid internet connection. More on that in a sec. What else do you need? Well, to get the most out of these games, you might want to consider a controller of some sort. Google itself is happy to sell you its own option, known as the Stadia controller, and that retails for $69. But you can also hook up other popular options, including Xbox One and Xbox 360 controllers, the Switch Pro controller, and the PlayStation 4's DualShock 4. And while it's not officially on the list of supported input devices at the moment, we were able to play on Stadia with a newer PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. However, there is an issue with button mapping on the DualSense that caused some issues on both the Chromecast and the FHD Streaming Stick. Basically, several buttons on the DualSense don't match up properly. For example, where the A and B buttons of other gamepads normally map to the cross and circle buttons of the PlayStation controllers, here they map to the upper square and cross inputs instead. It's honestly pretty disorienting, so maybe stick to other input options if you're considering Stadia on these devices. For now, though, here's a list of officially supported input devices and the platforms where they're supported. But how does Stadia actually perform on these devices? Well, let's see. Stadia performance results. You'll need to sign up for a Stadia account, which you can do easily enough via an existing Google account, including whatever account you use to set up your Android TV or Google TV device in the first place, and you'll need to download the Stadia app onto your streaming device, but you should also load the app on your phone or computer as well, so you can manage your account and add games to your profile. If you signed up for the Stadia Pro account, or a free trial of the Pro account at least, you'll be able to add free games as well as purchase titles from the Stadia Marketplace. For the purposes of our testing, we fired up a number of options, including Hitman, World of Assassination, MotoGP 20, Orcs Must Die 3, and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And we also tested in different scenarios, including a 4K display located within a few feet of our Wi-Fi router and a 1080p display on the other side of the house. And as for our actual experiences using Stadia, I think it can all be encompassed in 3 words. Impressive, but uneven. Stadia was at its best when our network connection was at its most stable. At those times, it was truly impressive to play, say, Hitman or MotoGP 20 on the $24.88 FHD Streaming Stick. That streaming device's onboard hardware couldn't possibly serve up games like this on its own, but it could capably stream the game in for us to play. Controls were responsive enough that I didn't feel like they were getting in the way of my enjoyment of the games, and while the resolution wasn't always pristine, it seemed a fair price to pay for the convenience of high-end gaming on a budget streaming device. At least that's how it felt when everything worked. At other times, however, network connection drops and hitches marred the gaming experience. On-screen text would sometimes degrade as the video stream quality momentarily dropped. Meanwhile, areas of PUBG that were dense with trees and grass devolved into blurry green patches when network speed dipped. In other cases, those connection issues resulted in dropped frames that caused choppy, stuttered gameplay. And we also ran into connection drops that ended our gaming session entirely and sent us back to the main menu. And even the NVIDIA Shield with its Ethernet connection was not immune to those network hitches. We ran into several instances where Stadia's connection quality menu warned us of unstable gameplay because of a shaky connection. You can adjust settings to compensate for these issues to some degree. One option would be to lower the video quality from the max of 4K on the Chromecast and NVIDIA Shield down to something like 720p. That would mean less demanding bandwidth needs and could offer smoother, more consistent gameplay. It's similar to, say, lowering the quality of a YouTube stream because a given video isn't playing smoothly enough on your connection. In the end, though, each of these 3 devices we tested were capable of some impressive gaming when connection speeds were up to par. But you'll want to make sure your overall internet connection quality is up to the task. Wrapping it all up. Overall, then, we were generally impressed by what the devices themselves were able to do in our Stadia testing. Even the budget-priced FHD Streaming Stick, which tops out at 1080p resolution, was able to serve up some solid gaming in the best conditions, though you might want to consider something like a Chromecast with Google TV if you've got, say, a 4K display in a bedroom or office somewhere. Meanwhile, the NVIDIA Shield TV Pro's Ethernet connection seemed to give us the best odds for success as far as connection stability goes, but overall we were able to run Stadia on all 3 devices, which is kind of the point of these services. They're meant to enable high-quality gaming on something as affordable as an FHD Streaming Stick. The more pressing issue in our case, however, was the uneven internet quality. Our connection averaged around 100 to 130 megabits per second, but it seemed to struggle when it came to Stadia's game streaming. And while Google itself recommends connections of at least 10 megabits per second, you might want to consider a much more robust internet plan if you really want to leverage Stadia, xCloud, or other game streaming services. And then there's also the data usage to consider. Google estimates 4K gaming could eat up around 20 gigabytes of data per hour. On the other end of the spectrum, 720p gaming takes up around 4.5 gigabytes per hour. If you're on an account with a data cap, that's another thing to take into account. In the end, we're still in the very early stages of game streaming services. Microsoft is continuing to roll out xCloud to more and more platforms, for example, and hopefully faster internet speeds and more robust Wi-Fi connections will spread further and further. In the present day, however, if you're curious about gaming on a streaming device like an FHD Streaming Stick, a Chromecast with Google TV, or an NVIDIA Shield TV Pro, it might be worth giving Stadia a shot to see how your current setup fares. Google is currently offering a 1-month free trial of Stadia Pro, which means you can access free games to test on your network first before plunking down real money. For now, though, that about wraps up our look at Stadia on a variety of streaming devices. And if you've given the service a shot on your own gear, definitely let us know what you thought of the experience in the comment section down below. As always, thank you all for tuning in. And please do consider clicking on those like and subscribe buttons down below. They really do help us out a ton. Until next time, my name is Philip Palermo. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.